Okay, it is 2 p.m. And I'd like to open the joint meeting of the Nye County Board of Commissioners, Nye County Board of Highway Commissioners, Nye County Licensing and Liquor Board, Nye County Board of Health. It's the governing body of the unincorporated town of Pahrump. It's the governing body of the unincorporated towns of Beatty, Gabbs, Manhattan, and as the Board of Trustees for the Pahrump Pool District. Commissioner Strickland, would you mind and please honor us in the leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and please remember to put your microphones on.
I didn't because I was afraid it would be overlaying Commissioner Jabor's.
So it's okay. Thank you. Could we take a roll, please? Commissioner Strickland?
Here.
Commissioner Carboni? Thank you. Commissioner Cox? Commissioner Boscovich? Commissioner Jabor is present in Tonopah. We do have a quorum with Commissioners Strickland, Carboni, and Jabor present.
I believe the other folks are going to show up. I know that Ron said he was going to call in, and Donna said she was going to try to make it, so we'll see what happens.
Okay, thank you. Manager Tackett, could you see, please, if we have either commissioners on the phone, please?
I do not see Cox on the line. If Commissioner Boscovich is on the line, he can press *9 to raise his hand, and I can unmute him.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'd like to open it up at this time. Okay, you're very choppy. You're very choppy, Commissioner Boscovich. If that was you on the line.
It is me. It should get better very soon.
Okay, thank you. Manager Sutton, number 2, please.
Item 2, general public comment. Up to 3-minute time limit per person. Action will not be taken on matters considered during this period until specifically included on an agenda as an action item.
Thank you, and we'll start here in Tonopah with Mr. Kyle, please. Mr. Carlisle, please.
Where's Carlisle? C-A-R-L-Y-L-E. I request that the county commissioners review the last meeting of the hospital board. Secondly, I believe that there is a misunderstanding on the use of the $2 million. It's conditional, and any use of that $2 million without meeting the condition stipulated that the hospital board has to have matching funds of $2,450,000. They cannot pay back the Brownsville loan. They're basically insolvent unless there's money that's not reported by the treasurer. And I asked the hospital district vice chair how he was going to use the $2 million, what it would use for to support the hospital district. No, it's strictly for hospital. I request, if nothing else, you have the district attorney review this and have the more current audit up to date. And I also ask for a review by the district attorney or the county commissioners why we have a vice chair, Mr. Campbell, that has been working in Texas, is now residing in Oklahoma and working. Why is he a legitimate vice chair for the hospital board? It's been going on for over a year and a half. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody on the phone, please, Sam?
No, Chair.
Okay, do we have anybody in Pahrump?
We do not.
We do not, okay. Hearing and seeing no public comment in Tonopah, Pahrump, and on the phone, I will close public comment. Number 3, please.
Item 3, Commissioner Manager comments. This item limited to announcements or topics issues proposed for future workshops or agendas.
Commissioner Carboni?
I have nothing at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Boskovich?
Nothing at this time, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Strickland, please.
Nothing, thank you.
And I also have nothing except to welcome and thank everybody for carving out some time on this special meeting. Appreciate it. Any managers wishing to speak at this time?
We don't have any here in Pahrump. I'm not sure about the
Okay.
phones.
Thank you. Anybody on the phone, please, Sam, wishing to speak under manager comments?
No, Chair.
No? Okay, thank you. I will close Commissioner Manager comments. Number 4, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today, we would ask that you remove the following items from your agenda. Item number 5, item number 6, and item number 8. Again, that's item number 5, number 6, and number 8.
Okay. For the record, we're removing number 5, 6, and number 8. And number 7, please, Manager.
Item 7 for possible action, discussion and deliberation to approve the audits of fiscal year 2021 through 2022 for Nye County and all component units of Nye County conducted by Daniel MacArthur Limited.
We have Mr. MacArthur here for you, Chair.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Dan MacArthur, and you know the drill, sir, to identify yourself and spell your last name, please.
Daniel MacArthur, MacArthur.
Thank you so much.
What page would you like us to start with, and what would you like to tell us about?
So I would initially like to start with the page 1 in the auditor's report or in the financial statement, if you would all turn there. This is page 1. If you're looking at a PDF page, I'd like you to look at the, excuse me.
Mr. Chair, just wanted to note for the record that Commissioner Cox is in the building.
So the title of this would be the Independent Auditor's Report of Auditors of Financial Statements. Is that the page we're starting with?
Yes, we'd start in this page. It's captioned at the top. It says Independent Auditor's Report at the top. So if you'd bear with me here, there's just some paragraphs that I would like to review with you in this report. As you look at the report, you can see it has the subtitles there, Report on the Audit of the Financial Statements and Opinions. I just want to start with the opinions first and not go through each paragraph, but the significant paragraphs. I'd like to read the second paragraph to you. It says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the county as of June 30th, 2022. So I'll just stop right there. So basically that means that we're issuing an opinion on the financial statements. In the past, that'd be deemed a clean opinion. Today, the terminology is an unmodified opinion. But we're basically indicating that we believe the financial statements are materially stated correctly. From there, there's some other paragraphs I'd like to go to. I'd like to skip the basis for the opinion paragraph and go to the emphasis of matter paragraph. It says change in accounting principle. During this particular year, there was a new accounting principle that was required to be adopted. GASB statement number 87, it has to do with leases. The county adopted this new accounting requirement, and it basically requires that leases that the county enters into that in prior years would have be deemed what I would call an operating lease. If you enter into an agreement that lasts for more than 1 year, and the example I will give will be like a copy machine lease where you might lease it for 3 years and then turn it back in and get a new copier after those 3 years. There's now a requirement to record those transactions as intangible assets on the books and records of the county and to record a liability on the books and records of the county. That took place in this year. The impact on the financial statements actually was very insignificant, but just so you're aware of this new accounting requirement and our reference to it in our audit opinion. Next, I want to go to responsibilities of management for the financial statements, and I want to go to the second, basically the bottom paragraph on page 1. Apologize, but I really want to read this to you, and the reason I want to read some of these is because the format of the audit opinion by auditors changed this year. The AICPA determined that there should be a change in how things are reported, and there's some information in here that hasn't been in any prior audit reports. And so you're all aware most audit reports are boilerplate type audit reports with a format designated for auditors to follow when they do issue a report. If there are issues that come up on the report, obviously that's going to be modified. But there's some things in here that haven't been in here before, and just so everyone understands, or some I feel important I need to review with you. So this bottom paragraph says, in preparing the financial statements, management is required to evaluate whether there are conditions or events considered in the aggregate that raise substantial doubt about the county's ability to continue as a going concern for 12 months beyond the financial statement date, including any currently known information that may raise substantial doubt shortly thereafter. I just want to point this out to you. This has always been done as part of an audit where management will review and say, okay, can the county operate for the next 12 months? Meaning, this is dated for financial of June 30th of 22. Can the county make it to June 30th of 23? Are they in a financial condition where they can make that? That's always been something that's been done as part of an audit. It's just never been laid out in an audit report like this. And it'll be laid out that way continuously. I wanted to bring it up because the fact that verbiage is in here, those words are in here, doesn't mean there's doubt. It just means it's something that's looked at by management. It's also looked at by the auditor. And it always has been. And that came about several years ago because there were some entities that maybe filed bankruptcy right after an audit report had been submitted. And that information should have been known before that report was submitted. And so this goes back quite a ways, but now they would like that laid out inside the financial auditor's opinion letter. If you go from there to page 2 with me of the opinion letter, this goes to the top of the page. It's titled Auditor's Responsibility for the Audit of the Financial Statements. This paragraph is substantially new and different, and I just feel the need to review this with you also. As auditors, our objectives are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue an auditor's report that includes our opinions. Reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but not absolute assurance, and therefore is not a guarantee that an audit conducted in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards will always detect a material misstatement when it exists. The risk of not detecting a material misstatement resulting from fraud is higher than one resulting from error, as fraud may involve collusion, forgery, intentional omissions, misrepresentations, or the override of internal control. Misstatements are considered material if there is a substantial likelihood that that individually or in the aggregate they would influence the judgment made by a reasonable user based on the financial statements. So that's quite a bit right there, and I just want to touch on that just a little bit. This has always been the case as it relates to audits. Auditors don't provide absolute assurance. All prior audit opinions have referred to reasonable assurance, not absolute. The new wording here, as you can see, indicates that, well, we don't perform audits to the point where we provide absolute assurance. This is in here just to help readers who read the financial statement that there's not a guarantee here, okay? It also goes on and talks about fraud and collusion. Generally, those things haven't been laid out on an audit report in this level. The fact that this is in here, I want everybody to understand that I'm not here suggesting there's any fraud or collusion that's taking place. My concern was if somebody reads this and compares it to a prior audit opinion, they may think that the auditor is implying there may be situations like that. If we do find situations that involve fraud or collusion, we take those to the appropriate authorities, whether that be to the chairman of the county commission, to the county manager, or the district attorney's office, It's not something that normally we would be sitting here in a meeting like this to discuss, because we're here to talk about the financial statements themselves and whether they're materially correct or not, okay? Any questions or concerns about those comments there? Just so everyone knows I'm not here saying there's fraud or collusion taking place, okay? So, all right. So, as indicated, the financial statements are fairly stated, and there's a few other paragraphs in here, but I don't see a need to go through those and address those with you today. So from there, I would like to go, frankly, to the very back of the report and take you to, I want to go to page 300 and, hang on here. Let's go to 349. I'll give you a minute to get there. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Okay, so if everyone's there, page 349 and 350 relate to the auditor's comments concerning internal controls over financial reporting and on compliance. The first page talks about the auditor's responsibilities, how in-depth the auditor looks at internal controls, and it also talks about reports on compliance. If you look at the first page, page 349, the third paragraph under the section that's titled Report on Internal Control over Finance Reporting. I'm just going to read you this paragraph. It says, our consideration of internal control was for the limited purpose described in the first paragraph of this section was not designed to identify all deficiencies in internal control that might be material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, and therefore material weaknesses or significant deficiencies may exist that were not identified. We identified certain deficiencies in internal control described in the accompanying schedule of findings and responses as item 2022-001 that we consider to be a material weakness. So as part of our audit, one of our findings is that we found a material weakness in relation to reconciliation of the investment and cash accounts that is performed by the Treasurer's Office. Several months of the year were not reconciled. It took until December of 2022 to get those reconciled. And so that is listed as a comment, and if you turn to page 351 in this financial statement, or in this report, it lists our finding concerning pooled cash and investment reconciliation. This has been a problem in some years here at the county. As we look at this, we believe that the reason for this is lack of cross-training inside the Treasurer's Office. There needs to be more than one individual who has the ability to do the bank reconciliation. If that one individual who's there and has that responsibility is absent, ceases to be working there, or becomes ill for an extended time period, then that control becomes a real problem. So our recommendation is that there be cross-training, that there be rotation of duties, so that in the absence of someone who has the primary responsibility to do those tasks, that there'll be someone who can follow up. I have reviewed this recommendation with the county treasurer. She is in agreement with the recommendations and has indicated she's in the process of implementing those recommendations, and implementation began in December of 2022. And her intent is to get to a situation where there is rotation of duties so that each individual can do duties of others in the office, okay? Just to follow up on this issue, this has been an issue off and on for the last 4 or 5 years. In addition to prior recommendations, I just want to follow up on a couple, okay? Our significant concern this year was the lack of training inside the Treasurer's Office with an employee gone and their reconciliation not being done timely. In addition to those recommendations in prior years, we've recommended that once the reconciliation is done, that it be given to the comptroller's office so the comptroller can review it also and look at it. Reason for that is because that reconciliation reconciles what's taking place in the comptroller's office with what's taking place in the treasurer's office as far as cash is concerned, okay? And so those processes will continue in effect as they are now. because of this comment in here, there'll be a need to put a plan of corrective action response into the state of Nevada when they get this report, so you're aware. Any questions concerning that issue? All right.
Before you leave that, sir, you believe, based on where we are today, since we've passed December of last year, you think that we've kind of already moved past that point where things are getting better, understanding that she's in the process of trying to hire a person that would be like the person that would be there if she's not there, or the treasurer?
I believe getting the bank reconciliations done timely and accurately, from what I can see, it is taking place. I still think there's going to be ongoing training to have persons or a person that specifically can also be in the rotation of performing those bank reconciliations.
Thank you.
Okay.
Chair, clerk would like to be heard.
Yes, for the record, Mark Comp,
Clerk.
KAMPF, County Clerk. For a while, I was treasurer in that office, and one of the things I observed was the issue of segregation of duties with regard to the reconciliation versus signing of checks. There's some live checks in the office. Do you have any comments about that?
So some of our concerns in the past have been the fact that wire transfers could be made in the treasurer's office without the comptroller's office knowing that. We made recommendations in the past where it requires a approval by someone in the comptroller's office and approval by someone in the treasurer's office. I did follow up on that here recently with the comptroller's office, and that control is fully in effect, okay, where it requires one from each office. There was a point in time, maybe it could have been two inside the treasurer's office. We felt that was inadequate because if one of those individuals is the treasurer and another one is someone who works for the treasurer, they would be under their control. And so the separation of duties between the two offices we think is very important, okay? All checks are supposed to be approved and signed, one signature by the county comptroller's office and one signature by the county treasurer's office. Those are the controls that are in place. Okay. The county is supposed to be using what's called positive pay with the bank, meaning that checks can't clear the bank unless they have been transmitted to the bank so they can match checks that the county says they've issued with checks that are clearing the bank. My understanding from what we've seen, this is still working at this point. Right now, we believe the checks and balances are there to address what the county clerk is bringing up. But as any internal control existed out there that exists, the fact it might be working at one point in time, it may not be working a month from now or 2 months from now. So there's always needs to be follow-up and vigilance with that. I'm not sure if that completely answers your question, but to an extent. All right. And some of the responsibilities as it relates to this are statutorily driven. If you look at the statutes do not require the county comptroller's office to do some of these duties, but appropriate internal controls do, from my perspective. Okay.
Does that cause you any problems, comptroller? Seeing as you are the comptroller at this moment?
No.
So there's no need for additional personnel or anything to that nature?
The controls that we have in place between the comptroller's office and the treasurer's office, I feel that they're accurate, and I don't see any issues there.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. MacArthur.
Yes.
For the record, Commissioner Jabbour. So I'm with you up until the point, sir, that you mentioned that the controls are in place at this time. The controller just confirmed that the controls are in place. She's satisfied. However, something you mentioned, sir, was it's in place now, but something could change in a month or so. How can that change if the signature cards at the bank, for example, recognizing 2 or 3 signatures, how could that change in a month or two without the authorization and approval for any signature cards to change at the bank?
those controls couldn't change. Those are the controls I would be talking about would be the failure of ensuring that the bank reconciliation timely gets to the comptroller's office for the comptroller's office to review it. That could fail because of issues that are ongoing with daily business. That's where I would have the concern over the failure. But as far as signatures at the bank, those couldn't change. My experience with that control, however, I am concerned because I do find that banks don't look at signatures much anymore. They really don't look at it, and so my bigger control that gives me confidence is positive pay, where the bank has and requires from the county to get a list of the checks that have been written and the dollar amounts of those checks to ensure that what has been written is the only thing they will use to clear those checks with. If they don't have a check that matches, they refuse to clear those checks. And that's kind of an override in my mind, even though I still feel like the banks have the responsibility to look at signatures because that's the whole point of them. And so that's a double check on that. But I agree with you, Commissioner. Those should not change at all and shouldn't be an issue.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. And one more question, please. So do you know if a list is being provided for that very reason? If a list is being provided to match checks every month, we'll say?
For positive pay, my understanding is
Yes.
that, yes, and my understanding is that is happening.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Chair? To add to your,
Yes, Commissioner.
question, just to add to your question. By any chance, do we have the treasurer online? Do we know?
Commissioner, if the treasurer is online, she will need to raise her hand by pressing *9. I think she's here.
Thank you. If we have to probably just want to make sure to close the loop on that, to have that conversation with the treasurer.
Everything has improved so much since we have changed our treasurer, and communications are going quite well with the comptroller's office, and we're looking forward to that position being filled too in the near future. So it's working much better than when we first started together, Mr. MacArthur, as far as your and my relationship 4 years ago.
It is getting better.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this specific item? Okay. Also, as part of the audit, we have a requirement to look at law and regulation as relates to finance, meaning Nevada Revised Statute compliance. There's only one area that became an issue for us in our audit. It isn't necessarily specifically laid out in the statutes, but I do need to inform you of this and note this in our report. And that is, there is one fund that has a deficit fund balance at the end of the year. It's the Pahrump Museum Special Revenue Fund. It's a small fund in comparison to the rest of them. But if you look on page 352, halfway down the page, you see current year statutory compliance deficit fund balance. It is deficit $7,619. County Finance is aware of this. This relates to the fact that revenues as budgeted didn't come in at the level that those individuals who basically manage the museum thought they were going to come in. Net proceeds came in lower, property taxes came in lower, and those are the reasons that caused this fund balance, okay, deficit. As you know, a few years ago, the museum was under one fund. There was a county-wide museum fund, and now they've been split between Pahrump and Tonopah Museum Fund. And maybe through that split there was also a misunderstanding of what monies were available. I think this split took place 2 years ago. But that fund balance, they'll obviously need to be rectified, and one of the simple ways to do that is just reduce your spending in the current year and it'll solve itself. Okay? Any questions on that issue? None. All right. Okay, I want to go from there to and talk a little bit about the finances and the situation of where the county is and point out some specific things, okay? First, I have some specifics that are not necessarily pages in the financial statement that I need to go to, but just want to discuss with the commissioners. Just to inform the commissioners that inside the financial statement, there are some significant estimates, accounting estimates. Most of the time when you look at financials, you're assuming that everything in there is hard data backed up with specific solid transactions that you can go to and look at and say, yes, that's exactly how much we spent for a specific project. But inside the financial statement, there are estimates that relate to three particular areas. One of them everyone would be familiar with, and that's depreciation on capital assets. That's the estimate based on the life of the assets. So you know there's an estimate in here for that. There's also estimates in here for the county share of the unfunded net pension liability of the public employees retirement system of the state of Nevada. And there's estimates in here for that, and I'll go to that in a few minutes. And there's also in here an estimate for the other post-employment benefits liability, which is the liability the county has for insurance benefits they've offered to retired employees. So I'll get to that and discuss that in a little more depth in just a minute. There are some things I would like to bring to your attention as far as difficulties encountered in performing the audit this year. Basically, we had two difficulties. One was in relation to the bank reconciliations, which I've already discussed, and the other one is in relation to obtaining a timely OPEB report or other post-employment benefits report, which I have discussed with many of you and has to do with a report that comes from actuarial consulting firms that are outside of the county and contractors hired by the county. When we do the audit, if there's any uncorrected misstatements or errors, I need to bring those to your attention. And anything that we came across while we're performing the audit that we felt needed to be adjusted, those adjustments have been discussed with county management, and those adjustments have been made. In other words, there's nothing we found that we thought should be made that has not been made. As part of the audit, we didn't have any disagreements with management during the course of the audit. And just so everyone's aware, as part of the audit, management provides us written representations concerning the financial statements, management's responsibility for the financial statements, and their responsibility for responding to any audit inquiries or any information that we request, and everyone was very cooperative. If there was a need to go discuss with other professionals any very technical issues I'm supposed to bring to your attention or want to bring to your attention if anything like that happened. For instance, if we had to go and consult with another CPA firm that on a very technical issue, or go consult with another professional on a significant issue, I'd want to bring that to your attention. In this particular year, we didn't have any situations that arose or required any type of outside consulting like that by our firm or by anyone in the county financial management, including the treasurer's office or the comptroller's office. So you're all aware of that, okay?
That's a plus, if I'm reading you right.
That is a plus, and as much as we can stay away from things like that, that is very positive. But if some technical things come up, it's always good to have somebody to go to. If there was some legal issue that we needed some technical advice on, we might even go get some additional legal counsel review with the district attorney if necessary, maybe go someplace else, and anything like that we had to deal with as far as the audit is concerned this year, okay? One of the things that I want to discuss in the numbers with you is I want to talk for just a minute about investment income loss for the year. So if I could get everyone to turn to page 15 of the financial statements. Page 14 and 15. Page 14 represents all the assets and liabilities of the county for every fund and for every asset and liability the county has. It's basically a consolidation of all of the funds on one page. Page 15 is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board version of a profit and loss statement for all of the funds of the county, all consolidated into one place. Different than a normal profit and loss, this starts with expenditures first on the top of the page and then has revenues on the bottom of the page, basically. So it's kind of inverted, as you might see a normal P&L for a private business. On page 15, a quarter of the way from the bottom of the page up, you're going to see a line item that says investment income loss. Has brackets on it because it's in the revenue section. It shows that there is, if you all can see that, it shows for the governmental column, it shows a loss of $5,436,318, and for business type activities, which would be the enterprise funds like the Prump Ambulance, solid waste, things like that, there's a $990,283 loss for a total of $6,426,601. I just want to discuss that with you for just a minute to make sure that it's clear as to why that loss is there and what's taking place. Basically what has happened is that the treasurer is responsible or makes investments for or with the money of the county, the excess revenues, or excess cash in the bank, I should say. When those investments are purchased, they could be CDs, they could be treasury bills. There's various things that can be used as an investment. There are statutory requirements of what you can invest in and what you cannot invest in. What's happened here is there's been investments that were made, items purchased, that 2 or 3 years ago, the interest rate was 1% on those investments. Just to make this clear and give you an example, if you were to purchase a CD, and here you'd be purchasing CDs at like $250,000 at several different banks because you wouldn't want to go above that to make sure your FDIC and insurance coverage is there. If you purchase a CD 2 years ago for $250,000, you're making 1% interest on it or a half. If you were to go buy that same CD today, you'd be getting 4.5% or 5% on it. Because you can get 4.5% or 5% on that CD today, the CD you purchased 2 or 3 years ago, no one's going to pay you $250,000 for it because they're not going to make 5%. They're going to make 1%. And so that means on the determination of the fair value of that CD today, if someone were to come and buy that from you, they're not going to pay you $250. They might pay you $225 or $220, whatever they would want to reduce it to so they could make that same 5% they could make if they went straight to the bank and bought it. So what's happened is that those losses or those reductions in your value of your investment have to be recognized on the financial statements following governmental accounting standards requirements. In past, several years ago, investments always recorded at the original cost, and there was never a market value or fair value adjustment up or down.
There was never an unrealized income, which is basically what this is.
That's what this is.
We're not losing money. We're just not making the money we potentially could have made.
Okay.
So I hate it, but it's just unrealized.
So
I wish it didn't have to be accounted for.
It makes people very nervous. So I would just like if you'd turn now to page 45 with me and let me address what Commissioner Strickland just brought up. So page 45, at the bottom of the page, we've added a table into the financial statements just so it can be more clear to everyone in relation to what is driving this. So on the bottom of page 45, and I'll give everyone a minute to get there, there is a table, and it shows what the interest income was for the year, and it shows what the unrealized fair value losses were for the year. And you can see that obviously the losses outweigh significantly what the investment interest income was, okay? Now the other side of this is several years ago when you bought investments and we weren't in times like we were now, your investments went up in value, and so you showed an unrealized market value increase, okay? As long as you hold the assets to the point of maturity, you get all your money back, okay?
Exactly.
So just that everyone understands and sees that, okay? I have a few other pages here that I would just like to review with you. And then...
and I'd like to make it perfectly clear that was the prior treasurer's investments. Thank you, Mr. MacArthur.
So let me just take you to page 19 and 20. Page 19 and 20 shows a consolidation of the governmental funds of the county. Shows across the top there, you can see on page 19, it shows general fund, road fund, grants fund, capital projects fund, the bond fund, and then all the other funds that the county has are all lumped into that second to last column. It says other governmental revenues. Following Governmental Accounting Standards Board requirements, there's some funds that are deemed major funds because that's where the bulk of activity took place during the year. They met certain requirements. But I just wanted to take you to this page because you can see here where at the bottom of the page, so you could see how all the funds combined panned out during the year. You can see bottom right-hand corner, second line from the bottom, the fund balance in all these funds were $95,279,000 to begin the year. It ended the year at $83,880,000, a drop of $11,398,000. But as I point out that drop to you, please note that a significant portion of that drop was related to the spending of bond proceeds money on several capital projects you had going during this year of June through 2022 that I'm sure you're all aware of. So that even though you see that negative number, it doesn't mean that you lost that kind of money. It means you took money from cash and you've invested it into capital assets, a significant portion of that, okay? Some other significant things that are reported in here. I want to take you to the OPEB and to the net pension liability so that you can see what's taking place with those. So if I could take you to page 57. Just as a reminder, in prior years when we have been here, the Pahrump Town Ambulance Fund has always had a negative fund equity to the tune of close to $1 million, okay? This year, you'll note it's not in the report. And I want to point out why that's the case this year. So on page 57, at the top of the page, it says detailed notes, long-term debt. And there are two tables here where it shows debt of the county at the beginning of the year and debt at the end of the year. So and they're broken out between the governmental funds and the business type funds. And so if we go to the first table there, governmental activities, you looked at the last two lines in the bottom of that table, it shows that the net OPEB liability as of June 30, 2021 was $77,656,000. It dropped to $51,282,000, just so you can see that decrease. Just below that is the net pension obligation. This is the county share of the unfunded PERS liability that's throughout the state, and it shows at the beginning of the year of $56 million, and it's dropped to $37 million. And so those are both estimates. I want to point that out. That made the negative fund balance in the Pahrump Ambulance Fund disappear, okay? Because when we reduce liabilities by that significant of an adjustment, then when you remove liabilities from a balance sheet, it's just going to have an impact on your equity, okay? But I do want to point out, both of these liabilities are driven similar to the investment income loss. And so you could be sitting back here next year and those could jump to more than they were in June of 2020. So when I brought up the fact these are estimates, I just want to make sure everybody understands that they're estimates. It's an unusual situation where the Governmental Accounting Standard Board wants to have this information in the financial statements, but I think they want it here because there's so many governments across the country that have unfunded liabilities, and they want them to at least be presented in financial statements at some point, but they are an estimate. Mm-hmm.
It's the upside down pyramid, that's all it is.
Okay, a couple of other things, and then I will I'll stop my presentation as it relates to this and answer any additional questions. So some significant things that I see that happen this year, and I just take you to a couple of pages here. I want to go to page 95 and jump back and forth here for a minute because there's so many different funds in here. But on page 95, I'll give you a minute to get there. This is the county general fund where the bulk of all activity takes place. On page 95, at the top of the page, I know you're aware of this, but I just want to point this out, that net proceeds for the year ending June 30th, and it's the second line from the top of page 95, you can see that for 2022, net proceeds were $1,009,000. In the prior year, for 2021, they were $2,187,000. I know it's been the county commission's policy to begin to take net proceeds and rather than have them budgeted as part of current operations, to have them pulled out of the general fund and moved into a capital projects fund for potential capital projects. But I want you to just point out that decrease. And as I looked at the budget projections for 2023 for the county, they were projected at like $233,000. And so if it holds out that way, there are significant declines in net proceeds throughout the county. The next area I want to point out is towards the bottom of the page under intergovernmental revenues. The fourth line down says consolidated tax. And there was a significant increase in consolidated tax from 2021 to 2022. It went up a couple of $1 million, which was really beneficial for the county. Nye County generates its own consolidated tax and isn't sharing from any of the larger counties. And as activity continues to increase in the Pahrump Valley and throughout the county, I would anticipate that consolidated tax to continue to increase like that. There was one other area that there was a significant change in the financial statement. I really don't want to take it all those pages, but if we compare last year to this year, in 2021, there were significant dollar grants related to COVID and significant COVID grant spending. In this particular year, expenditures weren't near that high related to COVID, but you do have money, and I guess I need to take you to that page. If you could turn to page 106 with me. I should say you do have money. This money existed 7 months ago or 8 months ago. I'm not sure right this minute where it's at, but on page 106 is the county grants fund. I'll give you a minute to get there. The county grants fund under liabilities, the fourth line down, it says unearned revenue. It shows $4.8 million there. The bulk of that money is, I think it's ARPA money. And it's shown as an unearned revenue because generally until that grant money's spent, it's technically not earned. And that's why it shows here. And so there still was some significant grant money that came in, but because it wasn't spent by the end of the year, if you go through and you do some comparisons from last year to this year, and you see a reduction in expenditures, that's one of the primary reasons, because the significant expenditures in the prior year that related to COVID. A couple other significant things that we saw in the financial statements. One I'd like to point out is ambulance billing and collection. There was a change in the process for ambulance billing, both in Pahrump and for the county billings. And we saw an improvement in the collections and the dollar amounts of money coming into those funds. And that can be a combination of the number of rides that were taken, but also because of the collection of the money. And so we did see an increase there, which we thought was very positive. Also included in this year is the sale of the, and I might use the wrong name, but thank you, PNC building, okay? And that's reflected in here as well. The sales price was over $2.5 million, but inside the financial, it's going to reflect less than that because of the offset of the original cost of that sale against the sales proceeds of what the building originally cost in the property.
Do we realize that as a capital gain? I don't know how that works with institutions.
It shows as basically a capital gain on the sale of assets in here. It does show that way. I could take you the page if you want to see it, but you don't have to pay capital gains tax on it, though.
That's what I'm asking. Thank you.
No impact that way. Okay. That's the bulk of the items that I felt that would want to discuss with you. I can, as you can see, I got a lot more Post-its on here. I could go through a lot of detailed pages here, but I don't see a need to do that. I'm happy to answer any additional questions or anything you think I might have missed or any concerns that you have that you'd like to address. I'd be happy to go through any of those with you.
Chair, may I ask about OPEB? Can we go to OPEB?
Of course.
Please? What page were we on that? Do you recall?
OPEB. Yeah, let me go back to that page.
Was it 42?
See, OPEB, the liability shows on page 57, and then there's some other pages that's on too, but page 57.
Long-term debt.
Yes, long-term debt on page 57, it's about halfway down the page where it shows net OPEB obligation. And it shows the obligation at the end of the year here on the 6/30/22 column. It shows it at $51,282,000.
So we reduced it by 26 million? Is that what that's saying? It was 77 and now it's 51?
It is, but that's only because of when the actuaries do estimates of what they think the liabilities are going to be, they estimate what they think future medical benefits are going to cost. They estimate what kind of interest you might earn on money you're putting aside. And so they go through all those estimates, and depending on what the current market rates are, they have a direct impact on what that OPEB liability might be. Okay? Let me take you to another page in here that'll add some more information on that. Okay, so that it maybe lays it out a little clearer too. Because my belief is I don't think that liability is going to stay that low. That really surprised me when it came in at that level.
That's what I was surprised
I believe it's going to
how it
change.
reduced.
And so let me take you to page 72. I'd like to take you to the bottom half of page 72. So the liability, as part of this full disclosure concerning the OPEB liability, there are requirements that there be sensitivity analysis related to the OPEB liability, okay? And there's different rates they have in here, and the first rate is a discount rate that's used in trying to calculate if the county had money invested, what kind of interest rates they might earn on it. And it shows here, you can see that the liability that they have and have provided to us, okay, is based on a 3.54% discount rate.
Right, middle of
The middle column. If that went down by 1%, look, it pumps it right back up to $61 million.
Yep.
Okay? And then below that, you see another section there where it talks about what's the sensitivity rate on the healthcare cost trends. And so at a 3.54% rate, we end up with a $51,000 liability. But if it went down by 1%, just that, it would go the opposite direction, because that means that costs are going down for health insurance. And we'd be up to a $42 million, or a decrease to $42 million, but if it went up by 1%, that it increased the liability by back up to $62 million. So it's a complete moving target.
Apparently.
To me, that doesn't make sense, but I got what they're doing. Medical just continually climb.
Medical is something, it's a moving target.
It's a moving target. Let's see. So I am a CPA.
Yeah.
I am not an actuarial consultant. Okay? That work out for you? You know where I'm going? So the actuarial report's about 100 pages long. We have been through the actuarial report, the draft, a couple of times, and the final report. Okay? And based on the information that we have to look at it and see concerning the numbers that were used to make the actuarial judgments and assumptions, but we're not actuaries, and so we don't make all those type of calculations, okay? We do several local government audits, and we've seen the same situation for other governments that have an OPEB liability or a PERS liability, and we've seen them all go down, and we're anticipating them now to all go back up, okay? Because we're seeing what inflation is doing now, and it's not, 1%, it's a lot higher. And so I think the next valuation will just kick that number up. And I personally believe, okay, I better take my auditor hat off now. I personally believe it's going to be greater than what the liability was 2 years ago, but we'll have to wait and see how that works out. Okay.
Medications and all that's been going crazy because where it's all coming from, the delays and so on. It's just becoming more and more harder to get materials, and it's costing more and more money to make the stuff that we're getting. So, especially where it's all at.
Mm-hmm. And so one of my points to begin with, these are just estimates, and it's good to have this sensitivity information down here and see how volatile it is, but
Right.
they are estimates, and it's something you just have to constantly look at.
That was the only portion of this report that I found was a discrepancy in my mind because I couldn't figure out the why. And your explanation satisfies that to me. It is a moving target. We really don't know what it's going to be in our future. And all we can do is plan on to continue paying it down.
Just keep
Throw money at it.
put money aside and actually watch it and try to do your best to make sure it doesn't get out of control. Maybe you have to make some adjustments in the future, but the PERS liability is the same thing. And you know, and that's more driven by when PERS gets money and they invest it, what rate of return they're going to get on their investments. If they're going to get a greater rate of return, maybe PERS might go down. We'll just have to wait and see.
Just like the stock market, you can't always predict what's going to happen.
I think the most important thing with these is that the Governmental Accounting Standards Board several years ago wanted this information in the reports just so people knew of these potential liabilities rather than just have them an off balance sheet liability like they have been for years and years and years. So
I think it's great. I don't know. I'm pretty sure the comptroller thinks it's good too. So he's got a big eye, keep an eye on what's happening.
It does, and it keeps us obviously aware of, for our budgeting perspective, is that we do have to keep budgeting for it because it is a big liability when you look at that number.
Money we just don't have in the little pocket over here to play with.
Definitely not.
Chair, that's all for me. Thank you.
Same with me. I think we've had a good session. I got some good notes and some highlights.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners. Commissioner Cox, do you have anything for Mr. MacArthur?
No, I think I've gotten all my questions answered that I was going to ask before I asked.
Yes.
So I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Great
Commissioner.
job.
Commissioner Boskovich? Mr. Boskovich? Did we lose him?
Hi there, this is Commissioner Boskovich for the record. My head is just spinning from all of this. It's amazing.
It's scary looking.
Okay. That's a reasonable answer.
There you go. My first one.
And I have no further questions for Mr. MacArthur. Thank you, Mr. MacArthur, unless you have more.
You know, can I just make, yes, I have one more comment. I'm sorry.
Thank you. No, don't be sorry.
I wanted to bring up also that during this past year that you made a decision to move to a self-funded workers' compensation fund. That's inside the financial statements, and based on what I see, that appears to be a very positive move for you, the way the numbers look as it relates to that, and the monies that are there and the costs that were actually incurred. And so I know you've been looking at that for several years, but I did have that in my notes here, and I just failed to bring that up. So I just wanted to bring that up. That's a real positive move as well.
Nice to hear.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. MacArthur, thank you very much for the presentation and for taking us through this a page at a time. Good questions. Certainly appreciate it. So let's see. We'll have to open this up for public comment at this time. Do we have any public comment to interrupt? And please don't go too far away, Mr. MacArthur, as you may be asked to answer something.
We have one here in Pahrump, Chair.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Patel.
Thanks, Ben.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, staff, and the public. That's me, I guess. Jim Patel, P-E-T-E-L-L, citizen, taxpayer, and voter. I did get the agenda yesterday late. I didn't get a chance to get the backup, but I would like someone to give me a backup before I walk out that door today. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody on the phone, please, Sam?
Yes, Chair, the caller is unmuted. Please speak and spell your name for the record.
Yes, Don Kaminsky, K-A-M-I-N-S-K-I. This is a quick question for Dan. Could he go back and tell me what page the ambulance revenues were reported on so I can verify that?
Stand by, sir.
So there's two ambulance funds inside the financial statement on page 116 and 117. So we go to page 117, and that's the Pahrump Ambulance Fund. I'll give you all a moment to get there. At the top of the page, it shows the charges for services revenues for the Pahrump Ambulance. Last year, the fees collected were $3,741,000. This year, they're $4,235,000. Please note that when ambulance fees are reported on the financial statement, it's required to report them net of what are called contractual adjustments, meaning there's a difference between an adjustment for a reduction in the fee due to someone that's on Medicaid versus a reduction of collections due to a bad debt, okay? So contractual adjustments, so these are presented net of contractual adjustments. So the billings were closer to $6 or $7 million, but there's contractual adjustments with anyone who has insurance where they're going to pay a specific amount no matter what is billed, okay? And so you can see the increase from 2021 to 22. Do you want? There's also the county ambulance fund. But I'm going to have
Mr. Kaminsky, did that answer your question?
Can I still talk? I'm looking for the county, which included what the Tonopah area brought in.
Okay, so I'm gonna take you to that page now. Just give me just a minute here. It's on page 154. So on page 154 for the county ambulance, the revenues are actually down a little bit last year over this year, but this fund is not how do I want to say this to you? There's two types of funds for governments. There are business type funds, and then there are enterprise type funds. The Pahrump ambulance operates and is accounted for as a business type fund. I'm going to get real in the weeds here, okay? Business type funds operate on the full accrual basis of accounting, meaning you accrue all of the receivables, whether they've been received or not at the end of the year. The county ambulance fund is deemed a governmental fund the way it's been set up. You can change it and turn it into a business type fund if you want to, but that's not been the decision the county commission has made. And so in that case, the rule is that if you don't collect the revenue within 60 days after the end of the year, it cannot be recorded as revenue on the books. There's a 60-day rule. It's called modified accrual basis of accounting, okay? And so if you look at this, this can be misleading if we try to compare the two ambulance funds together. But if you wanted for Mr. Kaminsky, I could make an adjustment so I could show him them compared using the exact same method of accounting, if that would be beneficial, or
Or to compare the two, because the methodology is
that is correct.
very different. One's are actual and one is modified. Actual, that's not right.
Well, one is full accrual, meaning
accrual,
if
yeah.
if I take a ride in the ambulance and you charge me $1,000, that $1,000 is going to show as a receivable on the Prump ambulance books and a revenue. But if I take a $1,000 ride for the county ambulance fund and I don't pay the $1,000 if I go on June 30th and I don't pay it by August 31st, that revenue will not show on the revenue line item here. Modified accrual basis of accounting, I don't make the rules, we all live by them. Okay? But that's where it is, okay?
I have a question on that.
Yes.
Excuse me, clerk?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, sir. One moment. Let me close with Mr. Kaminsky before we move on to you, if you don't mind. Mr. Kaminsky, are you still on the line? And did Mr. MacArthur satisfactory answer your question?
Yes, Chairman Jabor, he did. I do understand accrual as compared to cash.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead, clerk. Thank you.
But I guess my question is that even if you're using two different methods, you've got some accruals at the beginning of the year and some at the end on one method, and some modified accruals at the beginning and some modified accruals at the end in another method. So when you're looking at the statement of cash flows, aren't you still pretty close to similar?
You are, but it all gets back down to the timing of when that cash comes in.
Right. But yeah, if you got material accruals, but you don't at the end of the year, then you've got issues.
Correct.
Difference in timing, but as long as the business is generally consistent, there's no material difference. Okay.
I'm with you on that.
Thank you, clerk. Thank you, clerk. Sam, is there anybody on the phone, please?
No, Chair.
Okay. Hearing and seeing no other public comment in Tonopah, Pahrump, and on the phone, I will close public comment at this time. Any further questions for Mr. MacArthur? Did you have anything else, Mr. MacArthur?
No. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you. Do I need a motion to approve the presentation from Mr. MacArthur?
Motion to approve?
Second?
Thank you. I have a motion and a second on the floor. There's no further discussion from the commissioners. And before I call for the vote, I see Commissioner has excused herself. Is she still in chambers? Do I need to wait a moment?
I wouldn't wait. You do have a quorum if that's okay. It's up to you, Chair, of course.
She had to grab her keys for something, so
Something ran her out the door.
fine.
Okay. Then I will call for the vote, please.
Aye.
Carboni, aye.
Jabor's aye.
Boscovich, aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, I have 4-0 and one absent at this time. Passes. Thank you. Before we move on, Manager Sutton, I'm going to call for a 10-minute recess, and if you don't mind, I'd like Vice Chair Strickland, yourself, Mr. MacArthur, the comptroller, and if you feel appropriate, the district attorney, and Lorena and I will be in her office waiting for your phone call, please.
Do we bring any materials with us, Chair?
I don't think it's necessary. No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and the whole agenda item.
Yes. Okay, thank you, everybody, for your patience. Going to reopen and resume the BOCC meeting at 3:25 p.m. At this time, Manager Sutton, I'd like to reopen number 7, please.
Item 7 for possible action, discussion and deliberation to approve the audits of fiscal year 2021 through 2022 for Nye County and all component units of Nye County conducted by Daniel MacArthur Limited.
Thank you, Manager. So at this time, Commissioners, what I would like is amended motions to include under number 7, the Water District budget information that is included in the backup of number 7.
So amended as stated.
Second?
No, I'm in my second.
Oh.
So actually, just for the record, Commissioner Carboni made the first and Commissioner Strickland made the original second.
That's fine, thank you.
I amended my motion, my second.
Thank you very much, Commissioners.
you.
I appreciate that. Okay, I will reopen for public comment. Any public comment at this time? I have none here in Tonopah. Any public comment in Pahrump? I see none in Pahrump. Anybody on the phone, please, Sam?
No, Chair.
Thank you very much. I will close public comment at this time. Seeing none in Tonopah, Pahrump, and on the phone. We will not be hearing item number 9 today.
It's already included.
And let's move on to number 10, please, Manager.
Item 10, general public comment, up to 3-minute time limit.
Excuse me, Manager. I apologize. I have Deputy Clerk Sidman calling for my attention. Excuse me? Thank you. Thank you very much. I need to reopen number 7 once again, please, Manager.
Item 7 for possible action, discussion and deliberation to approve the audits of fiscal year 2021 through 2022 for Nye County and all component units of Nye County conducted by Daniel MacArthur Limited.
Thank you, Manager. And the reason, and thank you very much, Deputy Clerk, is I received an amended motion for both Commissioner Carboni and Commissioner Strickland, and I opened public comment, closed public comment, and now I will call for a new vote, please.
Yes, sir. Aye.
Carboni, aye.
Jabor's aye.
Thank you, Deputy Clerk.
Boscovich, aye.
Thank you. This number 7 now passes 5-0. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Please reopen number 10, please.
Item 10, general public comment, up to 3-minute time limit per person. Action will not be taken on the matters considered during this period until specifically included on an agenda as an action item.
Thank you. I have no public comment here in Tonopah. Is there any public comment in Pahrump?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Any public comment on the phone, please, Sam?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Hearing and seeing no public comment in Tonopah, Pahrump, and on the phone, I will close public comment at this time. Number 11, please, Manager.
Item 11, Commissioner Manager comments. This item limited to announcements or topics and issues proposed for future workshops and agendas.
Commissioner Boskovich, do you have anything, sir?
Nothing for me, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Cox, do you have anything, please?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Carboni?
Yes, again, thank you, Mr. MacArthur, for coming here and giving us the presentation, giving us the information we need to make a formative decision, and appreciate all your help. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Strickland?
Ditto. As always, thank you for being there. Thank you, Chair, for a nice meeting.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank Mr. MacArthur for your diligent work throughout the year. It doesn't just happen this week, last week. It's ongoing. Certainly appreciate your efforts, professionalism, your team's efforts and professionalism, as well as everybody in the county that you reach out to, whether it's the treasurer's office, the comptroller's office, everybody's office, that you need assistance with answers, with numbers, et cetera, for you to do your job, the tools to do your job and do it efficiently and effectively. So again, Mr. MacArthur, thank you so much. I know it's been long time. We've been anxious and waiting for the presentation. So thank you again. And that's all I have. Any managers wishing to speak at this time? Hearing and seeing no comments from the managers. This meeting is adjourned at 3:31 p.m. Thank you.
New record.